Imagine finding an ancient manual that's basically designed to reveal the absolute unvarnished truth of
Oh,
your destiny, right?
yeah.
And it's written in the literal flesh of your own hands.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But to read it, you have to download it from a website that is literally named for deception.
Which is just such a crazy contradiction right off the bat.
It really is. So
Mm.
today, we aren't dissecting a mountain of research or some sprawling investigative report. We're actually performing a sort of digital forensics on a single, highly unusual
It's
artifact.
just one little thing.
Yeah, exactly. A brief, really cryptic email that was sent on a random Wednesday afternoon. So, okay, let's unpack this.
We really have to look at the human behavior driving this single transmission before we even look at the attachment itself. Because what we have on the table is an email sent by someone named Corliss Best.
Right.
And the sender address is an iCloud account. It's YeJordanBest@iCloud.com. But, and here's the kicker, the recipient of the email is also Corliss Best, but this time at a Gmail address, corlissjbest@gmail.com.
Yeah, and it has that really classic default signature right at the bottom. You know, the one sent from my iPhone?
Oh, of course.
And the timestamp is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, at exactly 4:48 p.m.
Okay, so that cross-ecosystem jump is our first major psychological clue here. I mean, think about how modern technology is designed.
To keep you trapped.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Apple and Google, they operate these walled gardens. Apple wants you to stay inside their ecosystem forever. If you find an interesting link on an iPhone, the frictionless intended behavior is to, save it to Safari's reading list or just drop it into Apple Notes.
Right, where it just magically syncs to your Mac and you never have to think about it.
Precisely. The software is practically begging you to keep it in-house. So to completely bypass all of those built-in frictionless tools, to deliberately copy a link, open a mail app, compose a brand new message, type out your own secondary email address, and fire it over the digital wall onto a Google server, I mean, that is a conscious override of automated tech convenience.
It really requires effort. It introduces all this intentional friction.
Exactly. It's not an accident.
I see the effort there. I really do. But let me challenge the motivation a bit. Because people always say emailing yourself is just like a digital breadcrumb.
A string around the finger.
Exactly. A string around the finger. But if it's just a reminder, why go through all the friction of crossing from iCloud to Gmail? I mean, why not just leave the Safari tab open like the rest of us do until our phones literally crash?
That's a great question, because leaving a tab open is passive. It just sits there, hidden behind a little square icon, basically hoping you'll tap it again someday. But emailing it to a primary Gmail inbox changes the document's state entirely. It goes from passive to aggressive.
Oh, I see. It turns into a notification,
Yeah.
like an unread badge that you can't ignore.
It becomes a demand. The inbox is fundamentally a to-do list, right? But it's a to-do list that other people are allowed to write on.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right. So when you email yourself from an alternate account, you are cutting the line in your own workflow. You're forcing this random piece of information to sit right next to urgent messages from your boss or, your bank.
You elevate its priority by hijacking your own attention architecture. That's fascinating.
It really is.
And that actually reframes the 4:48 p.m. Wednesday timestamp entirely for me. Because 4:48 p.m. isn't just a late afternoon slump. It is the absolute boundary edge of the workday.
Yep. The golden hour of procrastination.
Exactly. It's that chaotic transitional window where you are mentally packing up, switching from your professional brain to your personal brain. So Corliss is likely on their phone, maybe in transit, maybe just avoiding one final task at the desk.
They stumble upon this link, and they just don't have the mental bandwidth to process it on a tiny glass screen right at that exact moment.
Right, so they capture it, they trap it in an email so it survives the commute home.
But does it actually survive? I mean, think about your own inbox right now.
Oh, it's a disaster.
We all have that graveyard of unread links we've aggressively emailed to ourselves. It's a form of digital hoarding. Does the mere transaction of pushing that link to Gmail give us a false sense of accomplishment?
Oh, totally. We hit send, and our brain releases a little hit of dopamine. It basically tricks us into feeling like we've already acquired the knowledge, even if we never ever actually open the file.
That's the paradox of modern information gathering. The acquisition completely replaces the consumption, which makes the actual payload of this specific email so fascinating.
Yeah, let's get into the payload.
If we accept that Corliss aggressively bypassed their phone's native tools to force this into their primary workflow at the very end of a Wednesday, well, we have to look at what they were so desperate to capture.
And the subject line is remarkably blunt, like, Just the 2 words, Palm Book. No context, not even capitalizing the word book, just Palm Book.
And the body of the email contains a single link pointing to a file called Cairo.pdf with a file size of exactly 1.8 megabytes.
Okay, so let's talk about Cairo and this Palm Book, because the collision between what this document represents and how it's actually being transmitted is honestly jarring. Cairo, for anyone tuning in who might be unfamiliar, was the pseudonym of Count Louis Hammond.
An incredibly famous clairvoyant.
Yes, a clairvoyant and palmist from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. I mean, the guy read the palms of Mark Twain, Oscar Wilde, Thomas Edison.
He was the absolute pinnacle of parlor esoterica, a total superstar of the occult back then.
Right. And palmistry itself is a practice that is deeply rooted in antiquity. It is entirely tactile. It's flesh and blood. A palmist physically sits across from you, holds your actual hand, and traces the lifeline, the fate line, the mounts of Jupiter and Venus.
It's a very intimate thing.
It's an intimate, totally analog search for destiny etched right into human skin.
Now contrast that intimate physical search for destiny with a 1.8 megabyte digital file. Because that file size is incredibly telling, you know? A 1.8 megabyte PDF is tiny by today's standards. Yeah, if this were a modern, slickly designed ebook filled with, like, high-resolution diagrams of hands and glossy photos, it would be 50 megabytes or more, easily.
So 1.8 megabytes means we are basically looking at raw, compressed text.
Most likely a heavily compressed black and white scan of one of Cairo's original century-old physical books. Totally stripped of its binding, its paper texture, its physical weight, and just translated entirely into binary code. We've taken the magic of human touch and flattened it into a standard utilitarian red PDF icon.
And Corliss labeled this mystical 19th century esoteric text with the most mundane subject line possible. Palm Book. Like they didn't write the esoteric works of Cairo or a guide to divining destiny. It's just a mental shortcut.
It completely strips away all the romance.
Completely. It actually reminds me of packing up a house to move.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah, like you don't label a cardboard box 19th century silver flatware and artisanal ceramic dining plates. You just grab a thick black Sharpie and you scribble kitchen stuff.
That's brilliant. It's a digital moving box.
Exactly. Palm Book is the kitchen stuff of esoteric digital archiving. It underscores how we process magical or profound topics in our day-to-day digital lives. We take this really mysterious concept of divining the future, and we file it away with the exact same emotional weight as an email about a dental appointment.
We domesticate the arcane. I love that. The modern mindset wants the magic, but, we want it easily accessible via a search bar. We don't want to travel to a misty tent to seek a seer. We want the seer's instruction manual instantly downloaded to our Google Workspace while we wait for the bus.
But, and this is the big but, if Corliss wanted the magic instantly downloaded, we have to look at the source of that download. Because the email didn't actually have the PDF attached to it.
Yep.
The email is just a URL pointing to where this digitized manual of truth lives on the internet. And that URL completely shatters the illusion.
Yeah, the link is, it's https://www.deceptionary.com/ftp/cairo.pdf.
Here's where it gets really interesting, right? The domain is deceptionary.com, a dictionary of deception, a depository of deceit. We just established that palmistry, at its core, is a deeply earnest pursuit.
Very earnest.
Whether you believe in it or not, a palmist believes they are uncovering objective truth. They are searching for the unvarnished reality of your life's path.
A search for pure truth hosted on a server literally dedicated to illusions.
It's a massive contradiction. How does the wrapper, the platform, the URL, the domain, hosting a piece of knowledge, change our perception of its validity? It's like walking into a massive library looking for a book on pure, unfiltered spiritual truth and finally finding it. But it's sitting on a dusty shelf in a section clearly labeled lies, tricks, and scams.
That framing is crucial, and honestly, it's a vital mechanism of the internet that we rarely think about. The URL acts as a cognitive filter. Well, if you read a scientific paper on a domain called, say, Global Health Research, your brain processes the data with a baseline of trust. If you read the exact same words on a domain called Satire Weekly, your brain is constantly scanning for the joke.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you are primed before you even read the first word.
Yes, exactly. By hosting Cairo's work on Deceptionary, the administrator of that website is making a blatant editorial statement. They're categorizing palmistry not as a spiritual truth, but as a magician's trick. They're
Okay.
likely archiving it so illusionists and mentalists can study how 19th century charlatans cold read their clients. So Corliss has urgently emailed themselves a guide to discovering truth, but the URL fundamentally colors it as a guide to manipulation.
And the architecture of the URL goes even deeper than is the domain name. Look at the directory path. It says /ftp/deceptionary.com/ftp/cairo.pdf.
File transfer protocol.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, FTP is an invisible background process, or maybe a relic of the 1990s internet. But seeing it explicitly in a modern URL tells a very specific story about where this file is physically living.
It describes the architecture of the space. Because modern websites, the Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 interfaces we interact with daily, they're heavily mediated.
Yeah, they're super polished.
Right, they have graphic design, algorithms, curated feeds, CSS styling. They are slick retail storefronts designed to guide your behavior. But FTP predates all of that.
It's old school.
Very. File transfer protocol is just a raw, unmediated direct connection between two computers. It's literally just a list of directories and files.
It's the digital equivalent of a dusty metal filing cabinet in a windowless back room.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. Finding an FTP directory today feels like you've wandered off the polished showroom floor of the internet and stumbled into the warehouse.
Where the public isn't supposed to go.
Exactly. There are no algorithms telling you what to click. There are no targeted ads. There's just raw data.
Which begs the question, does that raw, unmediated environment make the esoteric knowledge feel more authentic? I mean, think about it. If Corliss had found this PDF on a beautifully designed, modern Squarespace site selling crystals and $200 astrology readings, it might feel cheapened.
Oh, absolutely. It might feel like a grift. The commercialization kind of kills the mystique.
Right. But finding a 1.8 megabyte scan of a 19th century palmistry book sitting in a raw FTP directory on a site called Deceptionary, it feels like uncovering a forbidden text.
Like you hacked into something.
Yeah, it feels like you've slipped past the internet's security guards and found something you weren't supposed to see. The friction of the FTP format actually amplifies the aura of the hidden knowledge, even while the domain name calls it a deception.
It creates this beautiful cognitive dissonance. You have the magic of the arcane, the skepticism of the domain name, and the brutal utilitarianism of the file structure, all fighting for dominance before the file is even opened.
So what does this all really mean for our digital artifact? Because we started with what appeared to be the most mundane, throwaway piece of digital detritus imaginable.
A single Wednesday afternoon email from Corliss Best to themselves.
A momentary impulse to hit send. But by taking a magnifying glass to the metadata, we mapped out a massive intersection of human psychology and technological friction. We saw the walled gardens of Apple and Google and the deliberate effort required to break out of one to push a notification into the other.
And we watched as the intimate flesh and blood art of reading human destiny was flattened into a tiny, text-heavy 1.8 megabyte binary file.
We saw the domesticating power of the label Palm Book, turning mystical esoterica into just another item on a to-do list, like kitchen stuff.
And finally, we found the ultimate irony of where that knowledge actually resides. A text about divine truth hosted in the bare-bones 1990s-style FTP archive of a website literally named for deception.
It is a flawless snapshot of how we interact with information today. We rip it from its original context, we compress it, we hoard it, and we prioritize the act of capturing it over the act of actually understanding it.
Exactly.
When we archive a Palm Book in our digital inboxes, we are engaging in our own modern form of magic. We are summoning information instantly through the ether, pulling century-old texts from the void onto our glowing glass screens with a single tap.
But if the source of that digital magic is quite literally a deceptionary, it leaves us with a necessary question to ask ourselves about our own digital hoarding.
What's that?
Well, think about the hundreds of links, PDFs, and articles sitting unread in your own inbox right now. Is the real illusion the ancient art of palm reading? Or is the true illusion our modern belief that simply saving a 1.8 megabyte file means we have actually acquired its wisdom?